You're standing in a crowded room. Music is pulsing. Lights flicker. People are laughing, moving, copying each other in perfect rhythm. Same dance, same phrases, same jokes. And then there's you, still, watching. Not confused, not impressed, just disconnected. You see the trend, you understand it, but something inside you refuses to participate. Not out of fear, not out of rebellion, but because it feels fake. So here's the question. Why do some people instinctively follow trends, while others feel almost allergic to them? At first glance, it looks like personality, extroverts versus introverts, confident versus shy. But that's not the real story, because deep beneath behavior lies something darker, something evolutionary, something psychological, a silent divide in the human mind, the need to belong versus the need to stay independent. So why does the human mind split like this? Why do some people dissolve into the crowd while others stand outside of it? To understand that, we have to dissect something called social conformity and what happens when you resist it. Segment 1. The hidden pressure to conform. Humans are not designed to be alone. For most of our evolutionary history, being rejected by the group didn't just hurt, it was a death sentence. No tribe meant no protection from predators, no shared food, no one to rely on in times of danger. Survival depended on belonging, and because of that, the human brain evolved to treat social exclusion as a serious threat, almost like physical harm. At the center of this system lies a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This part of the brain is often associated with fear and emotional processing, but its role goes beyond reacting to physical danger. The amygdala also lights up in response to social threats, rejection, embarrassment, humiliation, isolation. To your brain, these experiences are not trivial or just in your head. They are deeply wired warning signals. So when you observe others, what they wear, how they speak, what trends they follow, your brain begins to run a silent calculation. If I don't align with them, will I be excluded? This calculation happens quickly, often unconsciously, and that's where conformity begins. Not from weakness, but from survival programming. This idea was powerfully demonstrated in the 1950s by psychologist Solomon Asch. In his famous experiments, participants were placed in a group and asked to answer a simple question about line lengths. The correct answer was obvious, but when everyone else in the group, who were actually actors, intentionally gave the wrong answer, many participants went along with it. They didn't conform because they were confused. They conformed because standing alone felt riskier than being wrong. This phenomenon is known as normative social influence, the pressure to fit in, even when it contradicts your own beliefs. So when people follow trends or mimic behaviors, it's not always mindless imitation. It's the echo of an ancient instinct, a quiet, persistent voice in the mind whispering, blend in or risk being left behind. Segment 2. The Psychology of Non-Conformity. And here's where the story deepens. Because resisting the crowd isn't always as simple as it looks. When someone feels the pressure to conform and still chooses not to move, it creates an internal tension, a silent conflict between the need to belong and the need to remain authentic. That tension doesn't just disappear, it lingers. It shapes behavior, thoughts, and even identity over time. The prefrontal cortex may step in to regulate impulses, to slow things down, to question. But the emotional brain, the limbic system, is still there, quietly reacting. It still feels the sting of exclusion, the subtle anxiety of being out of sync with everyone else. So what you often see in nonconformists is not the absence of pressure, but the ability to endure it. And endurance is the right word here, because it implies endurance, not immunity. Over time, this repeated choice to stand apart instead of blend in can strengthen a person's internal framework. Their values become clearer, their preferences become more defined. They stop outsourcing decisions to the crowd and start relying on their own judgment. In a way, they become self-reinforcing systems. But there's a paradox hidden inside this. The more independent someone becomes, the less they rely on external validation, yet the more isolated they may feel. Not always socially, but psychologically. Because shared experiences, trends, behaviors, cultural moments are often the glue that binds people together. When you step outside of that, you're also stepping outside of an easy connection point. This is why some nonconformists develop a quiet sense of detachment. Not arrogance, not superiority, just distance. And then comes the critical distinction. Are they choosing independence consciously or reacting unconsciously? Because true independence is calm, grounded, and flexible. It allows you to say no to the crowd, but also yes when something genuinely aligns with you. Defensive nonconformity, on the other hand, is rigid. It rejects not because something lacks value, but because it feels like control. It's less about authenticity and more about resistance. That's the darker layer most people miss. Sometimes the refusal to follow is not freedom. It's a reflex, a shield, a way of saying, you don't get to define me, even when no one explicitly tried to. So the real question isn't whether you follow trends or resist them. It's this: are your choices coming from clarity or from resistance? Because from the outside, they can look exactly the same, but internally, they are worlds apart. Segment 3: When the crowd becomes dangerous. Now let's flip the perspective, because conformity doesn't just explain harmless trends, it reveals something far more unsettling: the power of mass behavior. History has repeatedly shown that entire populations can move in the same direction, even when that direction leads straight into chaos or destruction. From financial bubbles that wipe out economies, to social movements that spiral into extremism, to moments of collective hysteria where logic simply collapses. People don't just follow ideas, they follow each other. This phenomenon is known as groupthink, a psychological state where the desire for harmony and acceptance overrides critical thinking and individual judgment. In such environments, disagreement feels dangerous, doubt is suppressed, and slowly, the crowd becomes its own unquestioned authority. What makes this truly terrifying is how invisible it feels from the inside. When everyone around you believes the same thing, acts the same way, and reinforces the same narrative, it begins to feel normal, even when it's deeply irrational. That's why resisting trends, even in small, everyday situations, matters more than it seems. It builds a mental habit of questioning, of pausing, of thinking independently. It keeps you anchored in your own reasoning. Because the moment you stop asking, is this truly my belief, is the moment you become vulnerable, not just to trends, but to anything the crowd decides to believe next. The twist in application. Now here's where it gets personal. You might not think of yourself as someone who follows trends, but think about this. Have you ever laughed at a joke you didn't find funny just because everyone else was laughing? Have you ever stayed silent when you disagreed because speaking up felt uncomfortable? Have you ever liked something simply because it was popular? That's conformity, subtle, invisible, constant. And on the other side, if you've ever felt out of place, disconnected, like you don't quite fit in, that might not be a flaw. It might be your mind refusing to compromise authenticity for acceptance. But there's a balance, because total rejection of trends can isolate you, and total acceptance can erase you. The real question is, are you choosing your behavior, or is the crowd choosing it for you? Because the moment you realize how much influence the crowd has over you, you start to see something even darker. Not everyone who follows the crowd is doing it unconsciously. Some people understand these psychological triggers, and they use them to manipulate, to control, to shape behavior on a massive scale. So the next time you see a trend explode out of nowhere, ask yourself, is this organic, or is someone pulling the strings? And that question leads to something even more unsettling. What if your thoughts aren't as independent as you think? And that is why you need to watch the next video.